Okay, let's start again. I've just got some scrap yarn here of some Fiddlesticks Finch, which is a 10-ply cotton, which you can get easily in Australia. Lots of online stores have it, online shops from within Australia, and a 4.5mm hook. So I'm going to start this magic circle with a slip knot, but instead of pulling that tight, I'm going to leave my working tail down here. I'm going to just grab the working yarn, bring it up, and I'm just going to secure that by pulling that through, which is like making a chain. So now we're going to work 8 single crochets into that ring as our base for this flower popcorn stitch, working our way into a square. So that was 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, single crochet, you go into your loop, grab your yarn, bring it through, 2 loops on your hook and bring that through. And I've talked about single crochets before. So that's 3, so we're going to make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And pull it tight. It might buckle in a bit there, just flip that right side up. Count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you pull that too tight like I just did, you might have to nuzzle the hook through, but you've got to go under the 2 loops, which is like the V, so we know that's the top of the stitch. And we're going to pull through there, and then we're going to pull through to join. Alright, so in the video tutorial I just did a chain 1 and then started my double crochets. That just gave me a tad bit of height, so I didn't have to do the chain 3 method. I'm going to start with a double crochet instead. 1, 2, 3. Now we're working into just 1 stitch, so it's going to get a bit crowded. 4, 5. So we want 5 stitches, whether or not you do a chain 3 or a double crochet, as long as your total is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And of course, look at him. He's so squished and on the side of our yarn, so you just got to count and just remember the rule that that first one's always crooked, just is. Alright, so now we're going to chain 1 to secure that, and this is different from the video tutorial, but it's another option. Do an extra one so that if you're using a slightly smaller yarn, an 8-ply, then you'll be able to see where the next round, where you're going to put your hook for the next round. So let me explain that once we've done this one. 1 double crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see now that we're actually working in the round, working our stitches, is that we can get our hook, we can see it, it's not so far down on the side. We can see that there. Tilt that back a little bit and grab it if you need to pull your yarn to tighten it there a little bit. Pull that through that stitch. I'll just show you that again because that was on the side. Grab the yarn and your hook's underneath the two bars of that last single the top of the stitch, and you pull it through. Chain 1 and chain 2. So what I meant was, if you're using a finer yarn and you only do one single crochet, this gap here is going to be tighter and harder to find, and you don't want to have too many irritating moments when you're learning to crochet to make things. So doing 2 chains there gives you a bigger space. So crochet is all about, each round needs to set up for the next round about where your stitches are going to go. So if you can make life a little bit easier, then changing this to have 2 chains rather than 1 is not going to make a difference to the overall pattern, because you're still going to have just the 1 space. So we've got 2 petals, and now just make sure that you're going into the next one because it's starting to get crowded, very close. We're going to do this all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull it up a little bit so we can turn our work. So that stitch that's coming out of, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I guess the issue with having 2 chains is then this chain here might be a little bit bulky, so it's going to hide this stitch a little bit. Pros and cons for everything, but it's just got to be aware that understanding what the top of a stitch looks like, and it always looks like a bit of a V. Okay, so we've gone 3. We want to go into the stitch next to that, so without missing it. Three, 4, 5, pull that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This time it's a bit easier to see, but yeah, so it's a bit knobbly, that chain. So it's about understanding what stitches look like, and then it makes your life with crochet a little bit easier because you still know what you're looking at rather than having a stab in the dark. Okay, so I'll continue this around. If I can, I'll speed it up to save you grief of watching me make these stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so I've got to the end and I want to attach to the first petal. So we need to tip your work sort of upside down, and you can see the 2 bars here. So that's the chain 1 space there, and I'm going to put my hook through and I'm going to slip stitch to that, because otherwise if you slip stitch to somewhere on the petal it's going to pull it out of shape. So that's how we join that round. So if you compare that with that hook and yarn, and you compare it to this other one that I have here, that's 8 ply with a 4mm hook, and this is 10 ply with a 4.5. So you can just see that there is quite a big difference with the result of your pattern. Now if you're just making squares and you're just going to make lots of squares and put them together, you know, if you have a smaller flower, you'll end up basically needing maybe a few more squares to finish a pattern if you're doing a blanket, or even if you're making one of these bags, little pocket bags, that's fine. I just adjusted the number of rounds I did to come up with a very similar end result. So this one is it's an 8 ply, but it's a thicker 8 ply, and as I've mentioned before, this was a yarn from Hobby, which they don't ship to Australia anymore, which is a bit of a shame, because this cotton range that they have, I think this is a Friends cotton, really vibrant colours. It is a bit splitty, but anyway, nonetheless, I can't get that anymore. But I used a 4.5mm hook with that, and that's supposed to be 8 ply, and if you compare that to this 10 ply, like 8 ply, 8 ply, 10 ply, results are quite different in terms of size. But again, to continue making this project with this cotton yarn, I will probably just do that first round to make it a square and then a single crochet round, whereas this one I went round twice, did 2 rounds of the granny square type pattern before I did the single crochet round. So you know, it's adjustable, but you can follow this pattern with an 8 ply cotton, which, you know, you can just get a cotton from Spotlight. It's usually, I think it's called Flinders cotton, and it's often on sale and it's cheap, so you can get something in Australia accessible, whether you go in store or get something online. Same with this Finch product. So yeah, you don't need to be sourcing your yarn from overseas. There's plenty of suppliers in Australia with some good product. So I guess that's the issue if you're watching videos and it's from America or the UK and they're talking about yarns that you can't get here. It's always good to know that there's stuff that you can get here, and I try and do videos with the yarn that I buy in Australia, so at least you've got a reference point for that. Alright, that's enough jibber jabber about that, and of course I digress. So we're going to cut off here, and then we're going to continue with this next round. Okay, so we're going to continue with this yarn, which is the Finch 10 ply. Fiddlesticks do make a range of different size cottons. You can get an 8 ply, I think 4 ply. So you just have to Google Fiddlesticks and yarn, and you'll come up with the options. But I do love this yarn. It's lovely to work with, and it washes and wears quite well. And you can make, it's good for making bags and, you know, and wearables out of, so it's great. Alright, so I've connected my yarn to the chain 2 space in the flower. Sorry, I was chatting too much and just went into automatic pilot. So I'll just go back and do that step. So I'm just making a slip stitch. I do this method just so for security. Not everyone puts that little slip stitch there. So I've got my slip stitch on my hook. I'm going to put it through the space. Just going to control that little yarn tail. Then go and grab my working yarn, pull it through the hole, and then pull it through, and that way that's nice and secure. I will still thread that through with a needle at the end, but at least I know that that's fairly secure as is. So I'm going to chain 3, which will count as my first double crochet, and I'm going to start up by making a corner, which will be a combination of 3 double crochet in into that one space. Then I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to do 3 double crochets back into that same chain 2 space which we set up in the row before. So I guess with a chunkier yarn it probably does work out a bit better having that little extra bit of space, but yeah, it's purely preference really. So chain 3, 2 double crochets, 2 chains, which will make the corner, and it's also makes a directional change for the project. 3 double crochets. Now some people will put a chain 1 space here and continue, but for the purposes of this tutorial I am not going to do that. Again, something you can add in, or if you see something else and you think, oh, I don't remember that in that video, but really sometimes it doesn't make too much difference. Alright, so 3 double crochets into this space, and then into the next chain 2 space we're going to make another corner. So that's chain 3 double crochet, 2 chains, and then 3 double crochet back into that space. And by making a corner, it rotates it around the corner. It's a directional change. So I mean, quite ingenious really, that you have something that's in a circle and then you make it into a square. And I was absolutely hopeless at maths at school, but somehow when you work things out like this, it's like, oh, I understand why that process is happening. Alright, sorry, jibber jabber. 3 double crochets into the space, and because it's going to be a corner, and I think I've mentioned before, you can do 8 petals and still end up making it into a square. You can do 8, 12, 16, yeah, so it makes sense to know that if you're going to put something into 4 corners, it needs to be divisible, a number divisible by 4. Alright, so 1 cluster into that space. Into the next space we are going to do another corner. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 1, 2, 3. And then we have 1 more space, so this will be the middle cluster of our square round. Alright, slip stitch to that first chain 3, which will be tricky. So let's go back 1, 2, 3, and it's hiding on its side. So again, if you can't get through this and these 2 bars going this way, just go down the center of those 2 bars and pull through. It's not going to affect your project, just doing for this sort of thing. Okay, so we've gone around once, which is similar to what I've done on this one, and by the time I do my single crochet and then a border, it'll be very similar to this. So I'm just going to show you just with this size yarn to go around, because I've done the other tutorial with the 8-ply yarn and a 4mm hook with the extra round. So you could just start your round here, but I'm going to slip stitch to the end because it's sort of something that I like to do. Now, because I went down the center of that one rather than going under the 2 bars, this looks a bit funky, this one. It's harder to see the 2 bars. It's sort of, this one's a bit askew. So you don't want to miss it. Go under the first bar and then there's the second one. And slip stitch. And then this one's easy to see. Now do this loose, and then I'm going to slip stitch to the corner. Chain 1 and 1, 2, 3. Now I'm not going to count that chain 1 as a stitch. So 1, 2, 3. If I hadn't done that extra single crochet, it's really on its side and it's going to be hard to see. So I'm going to pop a stitch marker in just to identify that first one there. 1, 2, 3. All right, and because this encroaches on that next row, I'm going to pull it back a bit, because there's our first stitch of this row. It gets covered by that third single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 3 single crochets into that space, being mindful that I just need to make sure that this one doesn't get missed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the good thing working in clusters of 3 is that it's easy to count. You're never going to get lost. Okay, 1, 2, 3 single crochets into the corner, and then we're going to do our 9 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Always counting, making sure. If you've got 8, you know you've missed that very first one, the little hidden one. 1, 2, 3, and then we should have 9 going across to the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Now these are the slip stitches I did that, you know, they look a bit messy here, but they won't once I join them. So if I wanted to turn this into the little pouch, I won't crochet all the way along. I'm going to go back a few stitches. So it should be 9, and we'll do half of 9 is 4.5. So obviously you can't do a half stitch into a whole space. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go into the 5th one, which is the middle of this 3 cluster here, and I'm going to chain my 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to go straight back into the same space and do my single crochet, and then I'm going to finish off the round 1, 2, under that slip stitch 3, 4, 5. So let's just see, that was the 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that one I've created my own little stitch because I wasn't counting. So we know we're supposed to have 9 across, and this one into the 5th I went into the same spot, so that's counted as 1. And I've put my hook here, so that's my first single crochet. So these 2 stitches here, which potentially could confuse you, that's why you really need to count. That's the slip stitch over, and that's the chain 1 hidden in there. So I know I wanted to have 9, 3, 6, 9 on each side, plus the 3 in the corner. So yeah, it's just something you're gonna, counting is imperative, just especially that last round when you're going to join. So I'm not going to make a stitch there because that would make my work uneven. I'm going to slip stitch into where I had the chain, the stitch marker. So now that's done, I can fasten off, and then I can weave in those ends. So you can see, even with just that round, it's brought it closer to the size. So really, a couple of rounds, you do 2 of those, put them together. So, you know, it's a project you can do in an afternoon, a morning, a night time, whenever you have time to sit down and you've got a few hours. So I'm going to make another one of these and then show you how I join it together. All right. Okay, so I've just made my second little popcorn flower with the square. I've done my 3 in the corner, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've come over to across to 5, and I'm going to make some chains to make the long chain, this long part of this little pouch. So I'll either do 30 or 40. Let's just see. Yep, 30. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see. 30 might work. It just depends on what you want to attach it to, but I'm going to do another 10. Okay, so once you've done your desired length, then I'm going to come back and go into the same space that I came out of. So we're still on stitch number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then there's our corner. So let me just check to make sure that I have done that right. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So because we have 9 on each side, then that's not a stitch and that's not a stitch, that's the chain 1. So that's the slip stitch from the row before, and there's a little chain 1. And I didn't use my stitch marker because I wasn't demonstrating that part of it. So there we have that part of it. Now, rather than cutting that and then I'm going to continue crocheting, and I'm just going to go over another slip stitch, because that will slip stitch into the middle chain of that 3 single crochets that I've done before. Now we're going to join this. Now last time I showed how to do a nice little embellished sort of slip stitch version. This time I'm still going to grab this the same way. Oops, wrong one. Sorry, I should have put a slip stitch marker in that one, shouldn't I? 1, 2, 3. Make sure we go into the grab. That from the side. Okay, I'm going to make sure that these are both facing the same way. All right, now that was probably confusing. Go back, reverse. I'm going to change my mind on that. All right, so we're going to join these together, and I know, so I've just gone back to that should be slip stitch to the first single crochet of the 3 across. So I know this is going to be the middle one, and this is the middle one from the other side. So again, stitch marker would have been helpful. So let's just single crochet this one together rather than the other one I showed you. Might be a bit easier for you. 1. So we're just linking up and going through all the loops. So there's 2 loops on this side and 2 loops on that side, and we're going to do a single crochet. And we're just holding it together, and we know that if our stitch count was right, then this stitch on this side should meet the next one on that side. So again, if I'm out at the end, I know that I've probably started from the wrong spot where those 3 single crochets are. Again, I don't even follow my own rules about stitch markers, because I think, yeah, I remember, and then I don't, and then I've got to fluff around counting where I don't need to if I had a stitch marker there already in place. It's coming around the corner there of where our 3 single crochets were. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I don't even know if I was on screen. In this side and onto the other side. And we just keep working around. I think you got the idea. Sometimes you just need to pull that apart, especially when you're running out of space to work. And just make sure you're going under both V's, the V on this side and the V on that side. And that should be it. Now, this is just the daggy end where I hadn't sewn in from the other side, and I'd slip stitched to there, so I know that I've finished my last stitch in the middle stitch on this side. But yeah, that'll be sewn in. Oops, just pulled that one out. I'll redo this one. Okay, and I can tie off and cut my yarn. And pull that through and sew that in. So all these daggy ends that I haven't weaved in yet, let's hide those. And there we have a little pouch. So again, single crocheting through both sides. The edging will look a bit different either side, because just that's just how single crochet works. And it'll be looking a bit different on this side. And if that's, you know, you're going to notice that, but other people won't. So that's sort of like the easiest join if you don't want to sew it. And again, if I wanted to add that to a bag, there's a strap of a bag. Take the long side underneath your strap. Now, before you tighten that, don't have anything in your bag. Pull that over your little bag. And you can do that. That leaves it a bit open, so sorry, I was right the first time. Pop that through first. Right, then we can go underneath, bring that around our bag. Right, and there we have it. I mean, you still have room just to shove your lip gloss and things like that, but you know, as long as you're not hanging upside down or doing anything silly, it will just hang there, and I think that's a really cute idea. So I hope that was the explanation was okay on this particular project. Again, it's I just wanted to show with a different size yarn, and that you can do it with less rounds. So hope you enjoyed that. As always, happy crocheting, and I'll see you soon. Bye.